Welcome to Undercurrents. You may notice, if you're not listening but watching to this, that I'm joined today by Washington Examiner editor and foreign policy writer, one of our favorites here on Undercurrents, Tom Rogan. Actually, one of my favorites just in the world, period. So, Tom, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Reciprocity times 1,000.
I feel like we're doing Will Ferrell and Christina Applegate here. This is Anchorman. Tom is actually wearing shorts under the desk, believe it or not. But we have a big show. We're going to be going through huge updates in the Epstein saga. Before we get into all of that, remember to subscribe over at undercurrents.tv for the full premium experience of the show. Subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And now let's dive into our first story. So the House Oversight Committee got its hands on the infamous birthday book. You remember the infamous Epstein birthday book from the Wall Street Journal's seeming blockbuster report not that long ago, really thrusting this Epstein story back into Trump's lap and back into the media discourse at a level that clearly irked Trump, the Trump administration. He has been calling it a hoax, as you know, basically ever since. And, you know, Tom, we'll get into this, but I think because of the way that Wall Street Journal story was originally dripped out without the picture, people were not wrong to be suspicious of it because it is such an outlandish story. Now that we have the picture, you sort of understand why it's so outlandish and so unbelievable, even as unbelievable of a character in our political imagination Trump has become. Right. The story is wild. But now the House Oversight Committee got from the Epstein estate a copy of the book, and in it we see all kinds of letters. So this is from the New York Times. One friend compared him to the main character in Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea, except instead of a fish, Jeffrey Epstein caught women, quote, blonde, red, or brunette. Another friend described a demeaning sexual encounter that a woman endured in the back of a car that left Mr. Epstein, quote, howling with laughter. Quote, so many girls, so little time, wrote a third associate of Mr. Epstein. Such tributes are part of the, quote, birthday book, which was dedicated to Mr. Epstein on his 50th birthday in 2003. The 238-page book, littered with candid photos, drawings, and collages, was released on Monday by the House Oversight Committee. Among the documents overturned by Mr. Epstein's estate after being subpoenaed by the committee. Now, the House Oversight Committee is run by Republicans right now. Obviously, Republicans control Congress, and a very MAGA-friendly congressman named James Comer is who subpoenaed the estate for the book. And we now have this picture of the female outline along with a very bizarre poem and Donald Trump's literal signature, as the journal story described it, and as other stories are now describing it, meant to mimic pubic hair towards that region of the outline of the woman that contains the poem. So, Tom, now that we have this and additional information on how we have it, all of that, is this real, in your opinion?
I think it leans towards probably being real, but I think it doesn't reach the level of being real in terms of having a sizable political effect. I think for two reasons. Number one, as you mentioned with that first journal reporting, where we didn't get the image, that sort of, fired the kind of barrage of shots off, the artillery rounds, and the White House absorbed them, and then the kind of news cycle kept moving. And so here, yes, it does provide more substance to that first reporting. But because of the delay and because of the insistence, and you see online, one of the things that not just the sort of crazier MAGA world people, but, some of the more reasonable-minded, and to be fair, there's a flip side to that where, other commentators are saying, actually, this does look legit. There's a big debate about, is the signature really Donald Trump's? Mm-hmm. And so for me, to create a political effect, there would have to be, more of a smoking gun in the way that, frankly, was reported about in the original Russiagate, the dossier, which, of course, was proven to be false, but video, right? Video that is, not AI, whatever. And I just think anything short of that will reinforce, the distaste on the left and center and some of the center-right for the president. But it will only create mild fractures on, within the edges of the MAGA movement. And, I don't see it being this kind of scandal that keeps growing and growing. That's just what do you think?
Well, on that note, let's roll this clip of House Speaker Mike Johnson, who, seemingly unintentionally outed Donald Trump as an FBI informant the other day. saying that Trump was talking to the FBI, and Johnson used the word informant. Whether that was meant formally, officially or not is a different question, but he used that word that way, and saying Trump was actually, he had talked to law enforcement at the time when Epstein was initially being investigated and cooperated and was helpful, and he wasn't under any investigation. Now, Johnson was asked if this appears to be real. Here's what he said.
Mr. Speaker, do you think the Trump birthday note to Epstein is real?
I don't. They say it's not.
Okay, so Tom, this is different for me for a couple of reasons. First, when that Wall Street Journal story originally came out, the sourcing was unclear.
Right.
And we didn't have the image. And so what that signaled, or what that left open as a possibility, was someone snuck into a real birthday book, a fake letter from Trump, which would be a really easy thing to do if you were an opponent of Trump's who had your hand on this.
Yeah.
And we don't know the sort of trail or the chain of command that people have had. The
Chain of custody.
Chain of custody, perfect. That's why you're here. The chain of custody of this document. And that still is unclear, but it seems increasingly unlikely that this is some type of forgery that was thrown into a bigger batch. Trump is adamant that this is not him, so much so that he sued the Wall Street Journal over the original story. Now, he's tossed lawsuits like the 60 Minutes Kamala Harris one out before. I thought this George Stephanopoulos lawsuit was actually not an insane lawsuit. Like the Kamala Harris one is
He has had insane ones, though,
right,
on the basis of the law.
Of course. And so, is the Wall Street Journal lawsuit in that vein? Is it defamation by any standard? Probably not. Is it libel? Probably not. But he's been adamant this wasn't him. He's now saying maybe someone else could have written it and signed his name to it. So I agree, Tom, this isn't going to get Charlie Kirk obsessing over the Epstein stories again. But I do think for that sort of, I use this not in a derogatory but loving term, podcast bro middle, people who were interested in Trump as somebody who was anti-establishment, they're not going to suddenly be rushing to the Democrats who are saying, like, they released a statement. The Democrats on Oversight released a statement about how, quote, it's time for the president to tell us the truth about what he knew and release all the Epstein files. It's not like Democrats now have the moral high ground.
Bill Clinton's in there with a couple of weird comments of himself, right?
He sure is.
Supposedly, maybe it's not him, right?
Also, Labour, Peter Mandelson.
Yes, the British ambassador. Not a great look for him.
Extremely weird. I mean, we've seen some weird Mandelson communiques towards Epstein released over the years, but this is some really weird stuff. Did you have a chance to browse the Mandelson files?
I did, yeah. It's as you say, extremely odd, and obviously the ambassador is gay, so there's not necessarily a it doesn't play into some of the kind of sexual narratives as obviously, but obviously in and of itself, it's an extremely strange thing to be doing. I
think that he refers to them as best pals in one of them.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, he did. And I just, my thing is, at the political level, is this going to affect the midterm elections? No. Again, I think it's like the economy, stupid, that kind of stuff. And
probably,
but it was you could almost make an argument that it coming out, and Trump obviously being rightly and necessarily on the defensive now, that over time this is beneficial to him if nothing further comes out, because he has put in, because it became this sort of corrosive thing on the, as you say, the podcast right, which has a
the
a lot
podcast
more
middle, Theo Von, Andrew Schultz,
but also I think the right, that there was salience, like this is a scat, this is being covered up, right? This is the deep state. Release it. Congress goes on, recess, and there seems to be this obstructionism. And you sort of throw it all out there. I think he's able to navigate it by, again, as he does so often and so well, changing the political news cycle. And again, I don't think it's going to be a really big deal for him.
Well, early indications are that you're right, because even, Tim Burchett, somebody who's been pretty serious about getting to the bottom of the Epstein story, has said, he told CNN today that it's, quote, so easy to forge Trump's signature, and that he's, quote, never known Trump to be much of an artist. Of course, there were those Trump like charity auction sketches that were released around the time of the original Wall Street Journal story on all of this. Trump told NBC today, quote, "I don't comment on something that's a dead issue. I gave all comments to the staff. It's a dead issue." Tom, actually, I think just on the political front, that is probably the best way for Trump to approach it. Don't even say it's a hoax anymore. I'm talking sheer, like, cynical strategy. Say it's a non-issue. It's a dead issue. I've said my piece. That guy was awful.
Or in that great Clear and Present Danger movie with the, Jack Ryan, it says advises the president, don't separate yourself. So he's not just a friend; he's my best friend, and close it down. Maybe that's not the best idea with Jeffrey Epstein, but
it's probably the best thing that Mandelson can do at this point.
Yeah,
he was my best pal.
Yeah,
and I miss him dearly.
Yeah, and in anticipation of a state visit next week. So that. I mean, again,
that's right.
It percolates the waters, and British journalists will want to chase this up in a sort of cheeky fashion. So anyway,
a cheeky fashion. Yeah. Well, we'll obviously continue following the story because when so many people, including us here, spent significant time just probing for the truth and framing this as a significant window into widespread elite corruption, I think that's what this story is. It will not go away for Trump in the media. It will be with him, but the question, I think Tom is correct, the politics of it, it'll contribute, from my perspective, sort of to the vague vibes, right? You can't really ever put your finger on the vibes in a midterm election, but this sort of will be something that contributes to...
Yeah.
The midterms won't be held in the same vibe climate that Trump was inaugurated in. Remember when it looked like he had conquered Silicon Valley and Wall Street and everybody was sitting behind him. He had this new Maha coalition. He won the popular vote. This is one of those things that I think does diminish that. It's
not, and I was going to say, I was just reminding myself here, there's something for... your viewers to kind of look into. There was a case in Belgium, the Marc Dutroux case in the 90s. I don't know if you've heard of that. And that is the sort of apex of elite corruption, basically what seemed to be a child sex trafficking thing at the worst, very young ages. They died, and lots of, DNA evidence suggesting of a ring and links to politics and
intelligence, right?
And it just went away, and it became a scandal, but it fundamentally corroded the sense of the Belgian people in their institutions. So, I mean, at a sense, this stuff matters, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and it's a new media environment now as well, so a lot less control on the behalf of the gatekeepers. Yep, absolutely. Tom Rogan is an editor over at the Washington Examiner, also a foreign policy writer. If you couldn't tell from this conversation, he covers foreign policy, and you should all go check out his work over at the WashingtonExaminer.com. It's been a pleasure to have you here in Undercurrents, Tom.
Thank you, Emily. I had a great time.
As a reminder, make sure to subscribe over at Undercurrents.tv for the full premium experience of the show, and of course on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts as well. And we will see you back with more soon.